Smile, Marcus whispers beside me. You look like a hostage. I feel worse than a hostage, I mutter. At least hostages know something is wrong. He straightens my tie. Cold feet. More like a cold grave. The church is glowing with candles, flowers, and the kind of expensive hope people save for weddings. My father sits in the front row with his hands folded. The priest smiles at me like I am blessed. My hands will not stop shaking. Breathe, Marcus says. I am trying. No, really. Your face is doing something tragic. I almost laugh, but the sound dies in my throat. This should be the happiest day of my life. Instead, I feel like I am standing inside a lie and waiting for it to speak. 3 months earlier, I was kneeling in our favorite restaurant with my mother's ring in my hand. Daniel, Olivia whispered, staring at the ring. What are you doing? Candlelight touched her face. She looked so beautiful that my chest hurt. I held the box up higher and said, trying to make the best decision of my life. She laughed once, breathless. That line was rehearsed. Only because I know you. If I came in unprepared, you would roast me alive. She put a hand over her mouth. Oh my God. The room had gone quiet around us. I could hear glasses clinking somewhere near the bar and my pulse beating everywhere else. Olivia Bennett, I said, you turned a bad coffee spill into the best 3 years of my life. Tears filled her eyes instantly. Too instantly. I ignored that. You drive me crazy, I said. You confuse me. You disappear into yourself and come back smiling like nothing happened. She gave me that soft look that always undid me. But I love you, I said. I love every version of you I have ever met. Will you marry me? She dropped to her knees in front of me. Yes. Yes, Daniel. Of course, yes. People started clapping. A waiter actually cheered. She threw her arms around me and kissed me hard enough to steal my breath. You are crying, she whispered against my mouth. So are you. I know. I practiced not doing that. I leaned back. Practiced? She froze. Then she smiled too quickly. Bad joke. That tiny pause slid under my skin. I told myself it was nerves. I told myself that a lot with Olivia. When we first met, she was standing in line at a coffee shop, staring at a ruined latte like it had betrayed her. That barista massacred my heart, she said. It is foam, I said. It was art 5 seconds ago. Can I buy you another one? She looked me over and smiled. Only if you are interesting. I can fake that for 1 drink. Then make it dinner. We were easy that night. Sometimes we stayed easy. On my couch she would tuck her feet under my leg and say, tell me one thing nobody knows. I still talk to my mother when I drive alone, I told her once. She kissed my temple. That is not strange. That is love. Other nights felt like winter. What is wrong? I would ask. Nothing. Olivia. Daniel, stop. I said nothing. You are freezing me out. You are overthinking again. I always backed off. I always blamed stress, work, family, anything but the truth that something in her never stayed still. Marcus saw it before I did. One night he handed me a beer and said, your girlfriend has 2 personalities. She has a complicated job. So does my dentist. She does not transform mid-sentence. I laughed. He did not. I am serious, Daniel. You just do not like anyone I date. Not true. I like the kindergarten teacher. She blinked normally. Very scientific. I am your best friend. Being suspicious is literally in my job description. I told him he was paranoid. Now I am standing at the altar, and his hand is still on my sleeve like he expects me to bolt. Too late to run? I ask. For me? Never. For you? Maybe 5 seconds. The organ rises. Everyone stands. I turn toward the church doors and force myself to smile. The doors swing open. My heart stops. One bride steps inside. Then another. Same dress. Same face. Same dark hair, same veil, same eyes. The whole church gasps. Marcus grabs my arm. Daniel, tell me I hit my head and this is not real. I cannot answer. The first woman looks terrified. The second looks furious. Then one of them points at the other and says, do not marry her. The other fires back. He is supposed to be marrying me. Every face in the church turns to me. I open my mouth but no sound comes. In one horrible second, every odd pause, every cold silence, every joke Marcus ever made snaps into place. Both brides start walking down the aisle, and I realize my wedding day is only the beginning of whatever nightmare Olivia brought with her. The church did not just gasp. It detonated. Voices crashed into each other from every pew. What is happening? Is this a joke? Oh my God. I stood at the altar with my mouth half open, my body locked in place, watching two identical women in white move toward me like some punishment designed specifically for me. Marcus tightened his grip on my arm. Daniel, say something. I cannot, I said. On the right, Olivia glared down the aisle with murder in her eyes. On the left, the other woman was crying so hard her shoulders shook beneath the lace. Same face. Same dark hair under the veil. Same mouth I had kissed 1,000 times. Same eyes, except these were wrecked with guilt instead of fury. My father rose from the front pew. Father Martin, stop this. Father Martin looked offended and terrified at the same time. I would love to, Mr. Rivera, but I have no idea what this is. The crying woman stopped halfway down the aisle. She looked at me like I was the center of some confession she had been dying to make. Daniel, she said, voice trembling, I am so sorry. My name is Emma. I am Olivia's twin sister. And for 3 years, I have been pretending to be her. Everything after that came apart at once. Olivia lunged toward her. Shut up. Emma flinched but stayed where she was. No. Mrs. Helen Carter rushed from the second row, heels snapping against the stone floor. Emma, enough. Come here right now. Emma stepped back from her. No, Mom. Do not do this here. Where else was I supposed to do it? At the reception? The guests had stopped pretending not to stare. Phones were already out. Someone near the back whispered, twin sister? Like that made any more sense the second time. Marcus leaned closer to me. You are pale. I might be dead. You are not dead. Check again. He looked at both women, then at me. Okay. New theory. I was not paranoid enough. Olivia ripped off her veil and pointed at Emma. You are sick. Emma laughed through tears. I'm sick? You let this happen. I cleaned up your messes for years. You stole my life. I saved your life. I did not ask you to. Mrs. Carter grabbed Emma's wrist. Stop this now. Emma pulled free. Do not touch me. My chest felt hollow. The church had gone too bright, every candle suddenly harsh, every face too sharp. I looked from one sister to the other and hated that I was already searching for clues. A scar. A different smile. Anything that could tell me which one had slept beside me, laughed with me, held my mother's ring in trembling fingers. Marcus said quietly, Daniel, breathe. I do not know who I am supposed to be breathing at. That got a nervous, broken laugh out of him. Fair. Olivia stared at me then, and for one stupid second I wanted her to explain this in a way that would let me wake up from it. Daniel, listen to me. She is unstable. She has always been unstable. Emma shook her head violently. Do not do that. Not again. Mrs. Carter turned to me with a smile that looked stapled onto her face. Daniel, sweetheart, this is a family misunderstanding. Emotions are high. Why do not we take Emma home and continue once everyone has calmed down? Continue? Marcus said. With which bride? Marcus, Olivia snapped, stay out of this. He stepped in front of me a little. No. I finally found my voice and it sounded nothing like mine. Someone tell me this is fake. Nobody answered. That silence hurt more than the confession. I stepped down from the altar. Every eye in the church followed me. My shoes sounded too loud against the floor as I walked toward them. Toward her. Toward both of them. Emma wiped her face. I wanted to tell you before. So many times. Olivia laughed bitterly. Please. You wanted attention. I wanted him to know. You want everything that is mine. My hands curled into fists. Stop. Neither of them did. You think you can ruin my wedding because you feel guilty for once? Olivia shouted. Emma shouted back. Your wedding? You sent me to dates when you did not feel like dealing with him. The room actually recoiled. Marcus said, Excuse me? Emma looked at me, desperate now. Not every time. At first it was little things. Coffee. Lunch. Covering for her when she said she was overwhelmed. She said you would not notice because we have done it our whole lives. I heard myself ask, What are you saying? Olivia folded her arms. She is lying. Emma took a shaking breath. I am saying there were days you were with me, Daniel. Days you thought I was Olivia, and I let you believe it. The room tilted. Marcus caught my elbow. Danny. I barely heard him. I looked at Emma. Then Olivia. Then Mrs. Carter, who had gone white and silent. 3 years of memories cracked open inside me, every strange mood and missing piece suddenly poisonous. I raised my voice. Everybody stop. Silence dropped over the church. For the first time, neither of them tried to interrupt me or lie. I stared at the women in white. What truth? I stood in the center of the church with Emma's diary in my hand and felt like every page had peeled my life open. Nobody moved. Nobody even coughed. The flowers, the candles, the organ music still lingering in the air, all of it felt obscene now, like the room had been dressed for a love story that never belonged to me. I looked at the women in white and said, I want the truth. Not pieces of it. All of it. Emma nodded through tears. Olivia folded her arms. You are letting her control this. No, I said. For the first time I am trying to understand it. I opened the diary again, but I didn't read. I looked past the pages and into the wreckage of my own memories. The night it rained after dinner, I said. We missed the train and instead of running for cover you laughed and pulled me into the street. You spun under the traffic light like you were 14 years old, and I told you that if I got pneumonia I was haunting you. A broken smile crossed Emma's face. I pointed at her with the diary. Was that you? She swallowed hard. Yes. Olivia scoffed. That proves nothing. It proves plenty, I said. You kissed me in the middle of the street and said rain made everything honest. I remembered that line because nobody had ever said anything like it to me before. Emma's voice shook. I meant it. Olivia snapped. She steals lines from movies. She probably heard it somewhere. I ignored her. The mountains, I said. That cabin in October. We woke up before sunrise and climbed that freezing trail with terrible coffee in paper cups. I told you about my mother that morning. About the hospital. About the last voicemail I still can't delete. Emma closed her eyes and nodded. That was me too, she whispered. Something in my stomach twisted so hard I almost doubled over. Marcus let out a slow breath beside me. Jesus. I barely heard him. I told her things I never told anyone, I said. You cried when I cried. You held my hand the whole way back down the mountain. Emma looked at me like she wanted to say sorry until the end of time. I know. Olivia's face hardened. So what? She was pretending to be me. Of course she copied how I would react. I turned on Olivia so fast my neck hurt. You think tenderness is something a person can copy on command? Yes, she said. When she has had her whole life to imitate me. Emma laughed once, bitter and stunned. That is really your defense? My defense, Olivia said, stepping forward, is that he was mine first. I laughed then. Not because anything was funny. Because if I didn't laugh I thought I might scream. Our 1-year anniversary, I said. That restaurant on 23rd. You kept checking your phone. You barely touched your food. When I gave you the bracelet you said it was nice, then asked if we could leave before dessert. Olivia lifted her chin. That was me. I was busy. I had things on my mind. Yes, I said. I know. I didn't need the diary anymore. The memories were arranging themselves without help now, sliding into place with a nauseating logic. The bookstore where you tucked notes into random novels for strangers to find. Emma whispered, me. The Christmas market where you bought that ugly knitted scarf and made me wear it because you said I looked too serious. She nodded again. The night I had the flu and you sat on the bathroom floor talking nonsense until I stopped shivering. Emma's tears fell faster. Me. Every answer from her felt like being cut open with my own happiness. Olivia said, you are romanticizing this. She only remembers the good parts because that is all she ever wanted. I looked at her. And the bad parts? What about them? The nights you vanished. The birthdays you forgot. The way you looked bored when I talked about anything that wasn't useful to you. Her expression sharpened. I had a life, Daniel. So did I said. I just didn't realize you kept handing it off whenever it inconvenienced you. She stared at me, breathing hard. I could feel the whole church holding its breath with her. Then Marcus stepped forward because of course he did. He looked at me first, not at either sister. Daniel, he said gently, you fell in love with Emma. Not Olivia. Olivia exploded. This is insane, she shouted. All of you are insane. He dated me. He proposed to me. He put a ring on my finger. You do not get to rewrite 3 years because my sister is obsessed with stealing from me. Emma wiped her face. I never wanted your ring. You wanted everything else. I wanted him to know me. Olivia turned to me with wild, pleading eyes. Daniel, marry me. Right now. Do not let her destroy this. We can fix it later. We can talk about all of it in private. Just do not humiliate me like this. I stared at her. There was again. Not grief. Not remorse. Image. Control. The wedding mattered. The audience mattered. I mattered only as long as I played my part. I am not marrying anyone today, I said. My grandmother, Rose, sat in the front pew with both hands wrapped around her purse. She had adored Olivia. She had spent months telling me I looked brighter with her, steadier, more alive. When I met her eyes now, she did not smile. She just shook her head slowly, sadly, like she was mourning something that had died long before today. That almost undid me more than the diary. Olivia saw it too. "Grandma Rose, please. Tell him this is ridiculous." My grandmother's voice was quiet, but it carried. "I cannot bless a marriage built on a trick." Mrs. Carter closed her eyes like she wanted the floor to open beneath her. Then Mr. Robert Carter stood for the first time all morning. He had been silent through the entire disaster, one hand braced on the pew, jaw clenched so tightly I thought his teeth might crack. "Robert," Olivia said, panic finally breaking through. He looked at his daughter, then at Emma, then at me. I had never seen a man look so tired before in my life. When he spoke, his voice was low and final. "Olivia," he said, "it's over. Tell him the truth. All of it." The priest had stopped pretending he had any control over this. He stepped back from the altar quietly, folded his hands, and became a spectator like everyone else. Olivia was still talking. Her voice had gone past fury into something colder and more dangerous. "She does this. She has done this our entire lives. She invents stories for attention. She cannot stand to see me happy." Emma was not looking at her sister. She was looking at me. Her hand moved to a hidden seam along the skirt of her dress. A small pocket sewn in deliberately. Her fingers disappeared inside it and came back holding a book. Small. Worn leather cover, dark brown, the corners soft from handling. The kind of book someone carried everywhere because they could not afford to leave it behind. She held it out to me. "Read it," she said. Her voice had stopped shaking. Something steadier had replaced the tears. "Read what she made me do." Olivia's voice cracked. "Do not give him that. I already decided." "Emma." Olivia stepped forward. "That is private. It is evidence. It is lies you wrote about yourself to make yourself feel important." Emma looked at her sister for a long moment. "You know that is not what it is." Olivia looked at me instead. "Daniel, do not touch it." I took it from Emma's hands. Marcus leaned close. "Are you sure?" "No," I said and opened it. The first entry was dated 3 years and 2 months ago. Her handwriting was small and careful, slightly left-leaning, nothing like Olivia's loose confident scrawl. Asterisk, Olivia asked me to have coffee with him today. She said she was exhausted and did not feel like performing. Her word, performing. I told her I could not do it. She said it was 1 hour. I said he would notice the difference. She said he never does. I do not know if that is an insult to him or to me. Asterisk. I closed my eyes for 1 second. Then I kept reading. Asterisk, he talked about his mother for 40 minutes. Not sadly. He talked about her the way you talk about someone still in the room. He said she made terrible pancakes and he loved them anyway. I laughed and it was real. That scared me. Asterisk. Someone in the pews coughed. I had forgotten the guests existed. Asterisk, Olivia wanted me to go to his work dinner last Thursday. She had plans. I said no and she cried until I said yes. He introduced me to his colleagues and held my hand and I thought, this is someone's whole life I am standing inside of. Asterisk. I turned pages. Some entries were short. 1 line. Asterisk, tonight felt wrong. Every time I almost said my name. Asterisk. Some were longer. Asterisk, he brought flowers today. Grocery store flowers, the kind wrapped in plastic, slightly crushed. He looked me in the eyes and said I was beautiful. Not like a performance. Like a fact he was reporting. He was not saying it to me. He was saying it to Olivia. And it is breaking my heart. Asterisk. I stopped reading. I looked up. Emma had both hands pressed against her stomach, tears running freely, not bothering to wipe them anymore. Her face was open in a way Olivia's never was. Raw in a way I suddenly recognized. I had seen that face. I had seen it over coffee when I said something that made her go quiet instead of laughing. I had seen it in the car when I reached over and held her hand and felt her fingers tighten like she was holding on to something she knew she would lose. I thought it was depth. I thought it was love. Marcus put a hand on my shoulder. I turned another page. Asterisk, he remembered that I said I hated cilantro. Ordered my food without asking. Just remembered and acted on it. I sat across from him thinking, this is what it would feel like to be chosen. To be actually seen. I cried in the bathroom after. Olivia texted and asked how it went. I said fine. Asterisk. Asterisk, I cannot keep doing this. Asterisk. Asterisk, I have to keep doing this. Asterisk. Asterisk, he asked me today if I was happy. Not are you happy with dinner, are you happy with the movie? Just, are you happy? I said yes because I was, in that moment, completely and terrifyingly happy. And completely and terrifyingly not the right person. Asterisk. I closed the diary. The church was silent in a way that felt structural, like the walls were also listening. I looked at Olivia. Her face had gone the color of the marble floor. Not ashamed. Not sorry. Calculating. Deciding what version of this she could still survive. It was not every time, she said quietly. That was her defense. That was what she led with. It was not every time, I repeated. She is being dramatic. It was a handful of. How many? Marcus said. Olivia's jaw tightened. How many times? Marcus said again. Because he deserves an actual number. She said nothing. I thought about the night I told her about my mother. The pancake story. The way she had laughed like she was genuinely delighted instead of politely engaged. The way it felt like being understood rather than tolerated. I thought about the grocery store flowers. I thought about the cilantro. I looked at Emma, who was standing perfectly still, waiting for whatever I decided to do with the truth she had handed me. Every time I felt like I actually knew you, I said slowly, not to Olivia, to the room, to myself, every time something felt real. I could not finish the sentence. I did not need to. Emma pressed her hand to her mouth. Olivia looked at the floor. Marcus said nothing, which meant he understood. Every warm memory cracked open in my chest and showed me its other side. And I stood in a church full of witnesses, holding a diary full of someone else's love for me, trying to figure out which grief to feel first. The church had stopped feeling like a church. It felt like a courtroom now, the pews full of jurors who hadn't signed up for the job, the altar transformed into something between a witness stand and a wreckage site. Mr. Carter's words hung in the air. Olivia stared at her father for a long moment. Something moved across her face. Not remorse. Not relief. Something more like the specific fury of a person who has been checkmated and cannot find a graceful exit. Then she broke. Not gently. Not sadly. She broke the way glass breaks when it's thrown. Fine, she said, voice cracking jagged. You want the truth? All of it? Fine. She turned to me with tears streaming, her mascara running in thin dark lines, her jaw set hard against the crying itself like she was furious at her own face for betraying her. I never wanted this, she said. Not the way you wanted it. I kept my voice very level. What did you want? Stability. She said it like it was obvious. Like I should have already understood. You are reliable and successful and your family is decent. You were never going to disappear or embarrass me or make my life harder. You were safe. Safe, Marcus repeated behind me. Yes, Olivia snapped at him. Safe. Some of us have to think practically. Keep going, I said. She looked at me then and I saw the first real honest thing cross her face all morning. Contempt. Small and quickly buried but real. You were also exhausting, she said. The feelings, Daniel. Every week there was something to discuss, something to process. You wanted to talk about everything. Every mood, every moment. I wanted to know you. I know. It was too much. The words landed without drama. That was almost worse. She didn't say it cruelly. She said it like a fact she had simply accepted and arranged her life around. So you sent Emma? I said. I needed breaks. I needed space. Emma was there. I looked at Emma. She was staring at the floor. She is shy, Olivia continued. She has always done what I asked because she does not know how to say no. I knew she would handle it without making it complicated. Emma's voice was barely audible. You threatened me. Olivia's eyes flicked toward her sister. I gave you a reason to cooperate. Tell him what the reason was, Emma said louder. Olivia pressed her lips together. Tell him, Emma repeated. You were applying to art programs, Olivia said flatly. In Edinburgh. Without telling Mom. I found the portfolio on your laptop. Mrs. Carter made a soft sound. She would have pulled your funding, Olivia said. Your apartment, your allowance. Everything. You know that. I just reminded you of it. You used it, Emma said. Every single time I tried to stop, you reminded me what you could take away. The room had gone very still. Marcus said quietly, she blackmailed her own sister into impersonating her. Nobody corrected him. I turned to Mrs. Helen Carter, who had been standing at the edge of the aisle with her hands clasped in front of her like she was waiting for the weather to change. Did you know? I asked. She met my eyes without looking away, which was somehow worse than if she had. I knew Olivia needed help managing the relationship at certain points, she said. Managing, I repeated. She is a young woman with a demanding life. She needed support. From her sister, pretending to be her, to her boyfriend. Mrs. Carter adjusted her grip on her clutch. I wanted Olivia to secure a stable future. You are a good match, Daniel. I did not see the harm in lying to me for 3 years? In managing a difficult situation. The rage that moved through me in that moment was so clean and complete that it almost felt calm. I was not the only one. I heard it ripple through the pews behind me. A guest near the back said, "Unbelievable," loud enough for the room to hear. Then footsteps came from the rear of the church. Slow, deliberate. I turned. Uncle Vincent Carter was a man I had met exactly twice, both times at family dinners where he sat at the end of the table and said very little. He was in his 60s, heavy-set, with the particular expression of someone who had been sitting on something uncomfortable for a very long time. He walked straight past Olivia and past Mrs. Carter without acknowledging either of them and stopped in front of me. He reached into his jacket and produced an envelope. "I sent this 4 months ago," he said. I could not watch it continue without doing something. I took it. The envelope had been opened and resealed badly, the flaps slightly uneven. Inside was a single card. Handwritten. Asterisk, "The woman you love is not who you think she is. Ask about Emma." Asterisk. I read it twice. "I never received this," I said. Vincent looked at Olivia. "I know." Olivia said nothing, but her chin lifted slightly, almost imperceptibly. That tiny motion of defiance that meant she had done exactly what he was implying and did not particularly regret it. "You intercepted it," I said. She looked at the wall behind me. That was her answer. I put the card in my jacket pocket and turned toward the front of the church, taking in the full scope of what was standing in that room. Olivia, who had catalogued me like a useful item and stored me accordingly. Mrs. Carter, who had seen nothing wrong with the arrangement as long as the outcome was acceptable. Vincent, who had tried to reach me and been stopped. An entire family that had passed information about me, made decisions about me, used me as a variable in their own equations while I stood in the middle of it believing I was someone's love story. I looked at Jessica. She was standing near the side wall in her maid of honor dress, very still, very pale. She had been Olivia's friend since college. I had hugged her at Christmas. I had thanked her for organizing the bachelorette party. She had smiled at my face every time. She crumbled before I even opened my mouth. "I am sorry," she said, voice breaking. "I am so sorry, Daniel." I told her it was wrong. I told her 100 times. "But you were here today," Marcus said. She pressed her hand over her mouth. "I know." I said nothing to Jessica. There was nothing to say. I turned finally to Emma, who had not moved from the center of the aisle through any of it. Her dress was crumpled from where she had gripped it. Her veil was gone, lost somewhere in the chaos. Her face was the only honest thing in the entire building. She had walked in here knowing what it would cost her. She had done it anyway. For me. The rage inside me stayed where it was. Contained. Controlled. Because losing it now would mean giving this family one more thing. I looked at Emma and I thought, she is the only person in this room who treated me like I mattered. The church was the quietest it had been all morning. Not peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after something breaks and everyone is waiting to see if it can be put back together or if the pieces are simply gone. Olivia was still crying. She had moved past the furious tears into something more calculated now, the kind of crying that comes with eye contact and pauses, designed to be witnessed. "Daniel," she said. "Please. We can fix this. Couples survive worse than this. You know that. We have 3 years together. 3 years of a real life. You are going to throw that away because of one mistake." I looked at her. "One mistake," I said. She pressed forward. "I can change. I know I need to change. But I need you to give me the chance. You always believed in second chances. You told me that. You told me that about your friend in college, about your father. You believe people can be better." She was right. I did believe that. But she was using the most honest things I had ever said to her as tools, and I suddenly could not remember if I had said them to her or to Emma. I reached into my pocket. The ring caught the light as I pulled it out. Simple gold band, small oval diamond, slightly worn at the setting from my mother's decades of wearing it. My grandmother had pressed it into my hand 6 months ago with both of hers wrapped around mine. She would have loved Olivia, Grandma Rose had said. I looked at the ring for a long time. My mother had worn this through hard years and good ones, through grief and joy and the ordinary Tuesday mornings that make up most of a life. She had worn it like it meant something absolute. Because to her it did. I closed my fingers around it. Then I walked past Olivia. She grabbed my arm. "Daniel, do not do this." I kept walking. You are humiliating me, she said louder. In front of everyone. You are really going to do this right now? I did not turn around. Daniel. Her voice cracked genuinely this time. Daniel, please? I stopped in front of Emma. She looked like she wanted to disappear. Her hands were folded in front of her, her eyes cast down, her shoulders carrying the particular shape of someone bracing for a verdict they believe they deserve. Emma, I said. She looked up slowly. I am so sorry, she whispered before I could continue. I know that does not fix it. I know sorry is probably the most useless word I could say to you right now. But I need you to know that every time I tried to stop and every time I did not, and every time I walked away from you knowing what I knew, I hated myself for it. I wanted to tell you so many times. Why didn't you? She laughed once, broken and small. Because she would have taken everything. My school. My future. My parents. She shook her head. Because I was a coward. Because I told myself it was not really hurting anyone, and that was the biggest lie I ever told. I opened my hand and looked at the ring between us. Emma shook her head. Daniel, no. You do not have to. I know, I said. I am not. She stopped. I held the ring up between us, not as an offer, not as a promise, just as a fact I was finally telling the truth about. The night in the rain, I said. That was you. Her jaw trembled. The mountain. My mother's voicemail. The grocery store flowers and the terrible coffee and the note you left in my jacket pocket that said, "You are braver than you think." I stopped. I found that note in February. I kept it in my wallet. Emma pressed her hand over her mouth. Every laugh that made me feel like myself, I said. Every moment I thought I had finally found someone who actually saw me. That was you. Not her. You. Behind me, Olivia made a sound I had never heard from her before. Raw and uncontrolled. I did not turn to look. I do not know what any of this means yet, I told Emma. I'm not standing here with a plan. I'm not asking you anything today. But I need you to hear this. I closed my fingers around the ring. You deserve to be known as yourself. Not as a replacement. Not as a favor. Not as someone else's convenience. You deserved that before any of this, and you deserve it now. Emma was crying so hard she couldn't speak. Mrs. Carter stepped forward. This is completely inappropriate. She is still. Helen. Mr. Carter's voice was quiet but absolute. He put one hand on her arm and did not let go. She stopped. I turned to face the guests. 80 people I had invited to witness the best day of my life, who had instead watched it come completely undone. I am sorry, I said. You came here for a wedding. I am sorry it became something else. My grandmother sat in the front pew with her eyes full of tears and her chin lifted. When I looked at her, she pressed one hand to her heart. That was enough. I walked down the aisle, past the flowers and the candles and the carefully arranged chairs, past every beautiful detail that had been arranged for a love story that never quite existed, and I pushed open the church doors. The morning air hit my face like cold water. I breathed it in. For the first time in 3 years, the air felt like mine. 2 weeks later, I sat across from Emma in a quiet coffee shop 3 miles from anything that belonged to either of our lives. No church. No guests. No white dress. No ring between us. Just 2 cups of coffee and the particular silence of people who have run out of reasons to pretend. Is this strange? She asked. Extremely, I said. Do you want to leave? No, I said. Do you? She wrapped both hands around her cup. No. I looked at her across the small table. The same face I had spent 3 years learning finally attached to the right name. Tell me something nobody knows, I said. She looked up, startled. Then something soft crossed her face. A recognition of a conversation she had been inside before, except this time her own name was attached to it. I applied to the Edinburgh program, she said. I got in. When do you leave? I haven't decided if I'm going. Go, I said. She blinked. Just like that. Live your life, Emma. The one that was always yours. She stared at me for a long moment. I don't know if Emma is my future. But I know Olivia was never my present. And sometimes the truth, no matter how long it takes to arrive, no matter how much it costs on the way in, is the only honest place left to start.